Turning now to the war in Ukraine, at least 27 people were killed Sunday in a shelling attack on the Russian-occupied city of Donetsk. That's in the east. 25 people were also injured, according to Russian officials. Moscow blames Ukraine for the attack. The Ukrainian military has neither confirmed nor denied involvement. The fighting is draining Ukraine's wallet. The Ukrainian government is anticipating a $38 billion shortfall in 2024. Financial support from Western allies could cover most of that, but aid proposals have stalled in both the United States and Europe. Let's bring in Max Bergmann. He's director of the Europe, Russia, and Eurasia program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Max, thanks a lot for being with us. If money from the West dries up, what options does Ukraine have to fund its military?
Well, none of the options are good. I mean, one of the options is to just simply print more money, and that is inflationary. We've seen a lot of countries in the past in wartime situations fall into that and do that. But the other option is to cut a lot of the government services that it's been providing, to not pay school teachers, to cut back on transit and other things that the state is providing. The danger in doing that is that you inhibit economic growth. If people feel that their kids aren't getting an education in Ukraine, they may leave. And all of this could lead to sort of a vicious cycle where the Ukrainian economy gets worse and worse. So it would require some drastic measures on behalf of the Ukrainian government to try to address that gap.
And so implicit in what you're saying is you'd have a morale failure, and part of what's been amazing is the will and strength of the Ukrainian people. Does this change the military strategy then at this perilous moment?
Well, if there is no economic assistance to Ukraine, and there's also no military assistance to Ukraine, then Ukraine will have to do whatever it can to buy weapons itself. So that's going to further erode what Ukraine has to spend on its economy and on its state government. So it creates a huge economic crisis in Ukraine, and then that will have battlefield impacts, of course. So the economic assistance is essential, but I think even more essential for Ukraine is maintaining the military support so it doesn't have to essentially cannibalize its government in order to pay for the war.
What's the picture look like in Europe with respect to support for Ukraine? We know what it's like here and how it's all bollocksed up in Congress here in the States. But give us a sense of the enthusiasm in Europe for Ukraine and how the picture looks there.
Well, I think this is the good news. Now, Europe was supposed to approve a 50 billion euro economic support package. That's a little bit more than $50 billion. Last December, it was not able to. One country, Hungary, blocked it. But the EU has sort of gone back and figured out ways that it could potentially get this money approved. There's a big meeting in Brussels at the European Council where the EU, all the heads of the 27 EU countries will get together. And it's expected that they're going to approve this 50 billion euro package for Ukraine. So it looks like Ukraine will get economic support from Europe. Now, that the deal that was there between Europe and the United States is that Europe would provide a lot of the economic support, but the U.S. would pitch in as well. So Ukraine will still need economic support from the U.S., and if not, it's going to face a shortfall.
And Max, finally, what does this mean with respect to post-war Ukraine? I know people might think, wait a minute, post-war, we're still in the thick of this, but there have been long-time discussions about funding Ukraine after the war, in part as a way to give the Ukrainians some hope for this war that they're right now going through.
Look, I think one of the real remarkable things over the last year is the Ukrainian economy. There's been a lot of focus on the failure of the counteroffensive in Ukraine, but the economy has stabilized. Inflation has been brought down to roughly 5%, on par with a number of Western European countries. And Ukraine, through its own military resourcefulness, opened up the Black Sea grain corridor, so it's begun shipping grain out. So its economy has stabilized. And what this will do if we pull the rug out from providing economic support to Ukraine is sort of thrust Ukraine backwards. And so Ukraine has had to reconstruct its country while it's fighting a war, and that's no easy task. And especially if you don't have the assurance of having that funding. So it'll really put Ukraine back quite a ways in its reconstruction efforts.
Max Bergmann with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Really helpful. Thank you so much, Max.